Meanwhile, the president of the United States made a very strong stand yesterday with regard to the Second Amendment. So there's this horrible shooting that happened at Florida State University. The gunman has been identified. I don't do the names of mass shooters because it gives additional credibility to mass shooters who are interested in notoriety. But this person was the son of a sheriff's deputy who apparently had access to one of her weapons. Again, this appears to be somebody who snapped, was mentally ill, not a shock. A spokesperson with the Tallahassee Memorial Hospital confirmed to CNN a local hospital received multiple patients with gunshot wounds. At least 6 patients were transported to the hospital with those gunshot wounds, one in critical condition, others in serious condition as well. CNN did what it usually does. They spoke with somebody who was sheltering at the time, just one of the students who was on campus, who immediately called for gun control.
Yeah, no, it's no situation that anyone should be dealing with, no matter what. I mean, you shouldn't have to think about that when you're going to school trying to get your degree, because I'm graduating in 2 weeks. And it's just, I mean, in general, it should not happen to anyone, no matter what. So that's the main takeaway, is that, you go to school to get your degree, make friends, make memories. You're not supposed to go to school to experience stuff like this.
Well, obviously, this would normally turn into a giant series of claims by Democrats about how they need gun control. That's been a loser for them for well over a decade at this point. Democrats claiming after every mass shooting that this requires some sort of quote-unquote assault weapons ban. President Trump was having none of it. Well, he said that what happened was absolutely horrible, and he was horrified by it. He said, I'm the president of the United States, and I do have to protect the Second Amendment.
Well, I'm going to have to look. I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it, and these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's a phrase that's used probably too often.
Okay, so again, one of the things that President Trump is great for, honestly, is preventing the excesses of the left. It's something that President Trump has 2 jobs. One is to push the ball forward on a wide variety of measures that conservatives want and that Americans want. The other is to stop the excesses of the left. And normally, Democrats would use this, again, as a leaping off point for a call for gigantic, large-scale arms seizures or for bans on the sale of arms or all the rest. The fact that's not even a discussion is definitely one of the benefits of the Trump administration. Meanwhile, the Trump administration is still trying to figure out exactly what it wants to do about Iran. And Steve Witkoff is leading many of the negotiations with regard to Ukraine, with regard to Iran. There are supposed to be these indirect negotiations happening between the United States and Iran. Iran obviously attempting to slow walk things, open up its economy. What they're trying to do is get the Trump administration to re-embrace a deal that President Trump called the worst deal of all time when he ran for office the first time, which was, of course, the Iran nuclear weapons deal cut by the Obama administration. He literally called that the worst deal, and the Iranians want it back. Whether Steve Witkoff is willing to stand up to them is another question. We'll find out. The administration continues to maintain that it is unacceptable for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
The bright red line is that Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. That is unacceptable. That's been President Trump's statement from the start. Now, one could ask if you need enriched uranium at 60% for a peaceful program. I'm not in those negotiations. I don't know what questions will be asked, but that is the bright red line.
Okay, so what happens in those negotiations, and what exactly does that mean for practical negotiations? Because again, the bright red line only gets crossed, them getting nuclear weapons once they announce they have a nuclear weapon. And so the question is how you forestall that in the first place. There's a big New York Times article that we talked about yesterday on the show suggesting that Israel had considered a strike and that the United States had said it would not participate in that strike thanks to the intervention of figures in the administration ranging from J.D. Vance to Witkoff. In any case, President Trump was asked about that story yesterday. He said, I didn't wave off the attack. We just have to see how things play out.
I wouldn't say waved off. I'm not in a rush to do it because I think that Iran has a chance to have a great country and to live happily without death. And I'd like to see that. That's my first option. If there's a second option, I think it would be very bad for Iran. And I think Iran is wanting to talk.
So that's President Trump making clear that all options are on the table. As far as whether Iran wants to talk, again, we keep hearing this, that China wants to talk about trade, or Iran wants to talk about nuclear weapons, or Russia wants to talk about peace. When that stuff starts to materialize, I'll get excited. Until that point, I'm going to assume the worst from geopolitical enemies of the United States, Russia, Iran, and China. That seems like the intelligent way of dealing with their jabber. Are they willing to actually put skin in the game? If the answer is no, then options become significantly more limited. Well, meanwhile, conflict is still continuing around the world. Israel is still under attack. Missile fire has resumed on multiple fronts. Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, all enemies openly seeking Israel's destruction. Well, here in the United States, we don't really imagine what it would be like living under the constant threat of terrorism and rocket attacks day after day, but that is the harsh reality in Israel today. Parents taking their children to school, suddenly having to fall to the ground and lie on top of their small kids, desperately trying to comfort them as sirens blare throughout neighborhoods. The horrific events of October 7th made painfully clear the next attack against Israel is not theoretical, it is happening right now. We may have precious little time to prepare for what comes next. We must act now before it's too late. That's precisely why I partner with the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews to help provide immediate life-saving aid and essential security measures. Your urgently needed gift today will directly help provide critical security essentials that save lives. From bomb shelters to vulnerable communities to flak jackets, bulletproof vests for first responders, armored security vehicles, emergency ambulances, and so much more. Join me in standing with Israel during this critical time. Head on over to benforthefellowship.org today. That's benforthefellowship.org. Your support matters more now than ever. Alrighty, folks, let's jump into a week-ending mailbag. I know it's Good Friday, and it's the end of Passover, so I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday, whatever their respective religions. Peck says, I don't understand the due process argument for Garcia. He had his day in court in 2019 and was ordered to be deported. He appealed and the appellate court ruled against him. How is he denied due process? He was denied due process because there was a withholding order that said that he was not allowed to be deported specifically to that country. If they had deported him anywhere but El Salvador, it would have been fine. They deported him literally to the country that said they can't deport him to that country. And so you have to have a hearing determining whether they're going to overthrow that withholding order or whether he ought to be deported to someplace else. Sherry says, between Kamala Harris and AOC, which one would be more destructive to this country as our president? AOC. AOC has no checks or boundaries on her at all. And Kamala Harris is a dullard, and I think that she would have screwed it up in a wide variety of ways. AOC, everybody around her knows is a dullard, but she's being run by an entire system, by a machine, and that machine would be incredibly damaging. Plus, she's charismatic and all the rest. Sydney says, hey, Ben, I'm in the early years of my accounting career. I'm both excited and concerned about how AI will impact my field. Will AI impact the field of accounting? Do you know of any resources that would allow me to keep up with how AI is impacting professional fields? Are there any books you'd recommend about AI in general? So there are a bunch of really good books about AI and what's actually going to happen with AI. As far as what it's going to do to accounting, I mean, it's going to make your job much, much easier because it's going to be able to sift through data incredibly quickly. It's going to require some expertise from people to actually guide the AI. And you see this very often with AI in every field. So I've noticed this when I use AI. So for example, I might say to AI, give me an example, to ChatGPT or something. Give me an example from a book. And it'll give me an example from the book, and it'll actually hallucinate the example from the book. It's using essentially predictive text. It's a very sophisticated predictive text mechanism. It might not give me exactly what I'm looking for. I'll go over to Perplexity. I'll get a better version, for example. Or I'll do a deep research with Perplexity that actually gives me the exact source. So AI, you do need somebody who can spot the errors in AI, and failure to do so can lead you to some wrong answers. Let's just put it that way. As far as books on artificial intelligence, there's a pretty good book called Co-Intelligence, Living and Working with AI by Ethan Mollick. He's a Wharton professor, and he talks specifically about how to work with it, what's the best way to treat AI, and how you get the best answers from it. Well, that's all for now, folks. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below. Be sure to check out all of the other great content on my channel. I'll see you here next time.